It's also known as For Those Tears I Died. Yeah.
The cathedrals had one come into the water.
It's 2:29, Jerry. So good. She wrote it in 1969, at 16 years of age, just shortly after becoming a Christian. I don't know if we really want to see ourselves. Oh, but we can't. We won't be able to see ourselves.
Just assume not.
Here we go. Online. Well, that's Bill. Hi.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Hi, everybody. Welcome to our live stream. Took a second there to get things going, but we're so glad that you are with us. I want to say thank you for being with us. And if you're on Facebook watching, what you can do is you can go ahead and actually share this on your feed. That way more people can watch and more people are going to be able to follow this. And so if you're on Facebook, if you would share that with other people, that would be awesome. And then, we're also on our website. There's a little bit of a glitch if you watch it on your phone, but there you can click and says watch on YouTube. So you can just click on the link that if it gives you an error message, it gives you the option to watch it directly on YouTube. So go ahead and click on that, okay? All right. Well, thanks again for being here with us. We have some guests planned today that will be with us. We have our staff that's with us, and also Ken and Karen. We tried to get them onto video, but they're just going to be on with us via audio, so they're going to be with us in just a moment. And so I'm excited. This is our big kickoff that we're doing for our fundraiser. I looked at the, let me see if I can go there. I'm actually was looked at the fundraising page, and we already had some donations come in. So excited about that. Let me click on that and see if we can look at it. Oh, session timed out. We're gonna have to look at that here in a minute. So, but anyway, so we'll periodically gonna be looking at the fundraising page, and just thank you everybody that's already given. If you would like to give, there's a link, I think, in the description, but if you can't find it, you can also go to icotulsa.org, and the donation link is right there. So what we want this next hour to be is really just to share a little bit about ICO and some stories of what God is doing among international students, and just really talk about God's heart for the nations and why we're doing this, why international students. And so we're going to be covering some of that in our conversations with our guests. And so we got Terry here and Eddie and Elisa as well. And so we're looking forward to it. All right, so we're going to get going here and see if we can get Ken and Karen on the line. Let's see here.
Hello?
Can you hear me, Karen?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, let me see and make
Can you
sure.
hear us?
Let me make sure that I'm getting you. 1 second.
Hear us?
I can hear you. I just need to make sure that everyone else can hear you. Okay?
Uh-huh.
1 moment.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh, mic check. Okay, I think. Go ahead and talk and say something.
I think we're here.
All right, perfect. You're there. Okay, beautiful. Okay. Well, welcome, guys, to our show.
We're happy to be here.
So glad that you're with us and via audio. So we're gonna, just have a few questions to get our conversation going,
Okay.
and would just love to, to hear just a little bit starting out of just kind of what grabbed your what grabbed your attention when you first started to even consider working with international students. How did God get a hold of your heart for it, and kind of how this all began for you guys?
Well, our story of getting into it started a little bit differently. I grew up in a family that I was fortunate. Both my parents were very godly, and our church was very mission oriented. So I grew up learning about missions and what we were doing in missions around the world, and listening to missionaries speak frequently at our church. And even from a very young age, I have very clear memories of when the missionaries shared of my heart just being stirred. And when I was in high school, I felt a special calling to surrender to full-time Christian service. And from that, God actually led me overseas. And I actually served overseas for a couple of years. And when I came back, I think that was one of the biggest impacts because of what I went through having to adapt to a culture overseas, being away from my family, just a different language, people with different customs, and having to learn it. And when I came back, I just seen, I don't know, I just started, the burden for internationals continued. And then when Ken and I got married, I'll let him tell that part.
When Karen and I got married, my picture of missionary work was an old man and woman coming on a Sunday night and showing us slides of their work, which I was bored to tears with. So, so
Very opposite.
yeah. So she took, excuse me, she took me to a missions conference, whenever it was, and we were there for a couple of days. After lunch one day, we went into a session, and a Mr. Thompson from Peru was the speaker. And I'm ready to close my eyes and take a nap when Mr. Thompson began to speak. And he was as homely a looking man as I had ever seen. And my thought was, God can't use a man like that. And when Mr. Thompson opened his mouth, all I heard was God speaking. And from that point on, God changed my whole perspective of not only what missions was, but who he could use.
Wow.
So
That's maybe going back a little too far for a specific answer, how that connects to ICO, but it's really, because that was the seed that God planted in our heart, and we wanted to serve him, and we felt like he was calling us to something outside of the church and where we were serving at that time. And so we began praying and seeking and asking the Lord where he wanted us to serve. And it was one thing led to another. A group studying scripture, studying the Bible, that was meeting on the TU campus was not going to be able to use their place, and asked the church that we attended, do you have a place? Can you help us out? And our pastor asked us to be the host, and that happened back in sometime in 1989. And so we hosted and we went, and that night, Ken and I and our kids, we went to, at that time it was Sequoia Hills Baptist Church, and we're expecting, well, we didn't know what to expect. And these group of internationals, predominantly Asians, walked in, and through the course of the evening, we knew immediately that was where God wanted us to serve. We were so completely in unison, and him just stirring our hearts that night, and we knew, and there's been no turning back. It's
Wow.
been awesome.
Yeah.
We had to kind of hold on to his coattails.
Thanks so much for sharing, guys. So looking at, you guys have been doing this for a while now, and you guys are having students in your, living in your home. You have students that come weekly to your home, and so you guys help students do all get all kinds of things done, and you've cared for them. You've gone on trips with students. You've driven students to airports in other cities. All kinds of really just things that looking maybe from where you first started to forward. Could you have ever imagined what this would have turned out to be?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is absolutely no way. Because in 1989, we were still of the mind that uh, what God was using us in was at the church. And, we had a few more years before, of serving him at church, working with internationals, because our church, they came regularly at church, and we started an international Sunday school class so that they could participate in that. And then we had a Friday night with them, but it was still all through the church. And it was a few years before we actually grew to recognize that it was life that God wanted to use. It was everyday life that living with them, taking them to the store, or like you said, picking them up and at the airport, or taking them to an airport, or helping them get their driver's license.
Yeah.
So, um,
And so what kind of impact has working with international students had on your life?
It's changed our life completely, Jerry.
yeah,
They have as much impact on us as we have on them.
I think sometimes more.
Yeah, you can't, we've had students living with us now since around 2000. And you can't live with someone without them impacting your life. We've seen a lot of them come to know the Lord in our presence. We've seen a lot of them, more than that, come to the Lord at some point after that, 4, 5, 6 years later, when you hear that someone that used to live with you accepted the Lord.
Well, when they text or call and say, "I wanted you to know."
Yeah, yeah.
And the I one of the ways it's impacted me is it makes God bigger. The questions that they ask when they're seeking and when they're trying to understand why people are loving them the way that they are. Um, it's different questions than I've asked on my faith journey. And it just broadens who God is. Um, the watching them on their journey, um, it, it impacts my faith, to see how God changes their lives, and how one student may accept Christ, but then their whole family will follow and accept Christ. It's just, and it may be just a tool of driving them somewhere that God used, that started the whole thing. It's
A bag of groceries.
yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
Blessings beyond anything we could have ever dreamed of.
Yeah. Well, and you guys have really joined in with God's hospitality towards people. It joined in with His invitation, to come and to eat with Him and to be in relationship with Him. And you guys have just really, in the flesh have represented that to students, that God's love and His invitation is real and it's right in front of you. And so the final question I just have for you guys is, what would be your invitation to anyone who just really like you guys, has sensed God's pulling on your heart and has began to really burden your heart for international students or for the nations? What would your invitation be to them?
One of the first things I would say is keep praying and keep seeking the Lord, because this is not something that you manufacture on your own. It is truly an outpouring of you're seeking Him, and He's the one that opens the doors. If he has really placed on your heart international students, you keep praying. There's going to be an opportunity that opens up in a place you may not even think of looking. And it's going to happen. He is faithful to fulfill his promises, and he is faithful to lead those who are seeking him.
Yes.
So that would be, don't give up. Be patient and keep seeking.
Yes.
That's what I would say. Yeah, keep
That's
praying.
good.
One way that you know that the Lord is doing something, in the 20 years that we have had the privilege of students living with us, not one time have we had to go out and ask a student to come in.
That's right.
There's usually, anymore, there's usually a waiting list. We have 2 students moving in the next week that we could use your prayers with, just from the standpoint of,
The special circumstances.
yeah, the special circumstances that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for being a part of our time today, and I just really, yes, thank you for being a part of this community as we share the love of Jesus with students and to continue to serve them. You guys are just such a big blessing. So, thanks again for being a part of our time this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you for including us.
absolutely. God bless you.
Yeah, you too.
All right, bye. Okay, guys, so we are going to go to a quick video clip, and then we're going to have our next guest, which is Terry Ligon. And I feel like I should say his name like we do at Phil. Here's Terry, but we may or may not do that. So anyway, so we're going to play a video, and we'll be right back.
China, Iran, Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Oman, Vietnam, India, Pakistan, Germany, South Korea, Angola, Malaysia, Indonesia, Ghana, Nigeria, and the list goes on. What if I told you that you could impact these places by being a neighbor? What if I told you that people from these places are here in Tulsa now? What if I told you that there are generation changers ready to shape the future of their countries and people? What if I told you that you can change the world by sharing the good news of Jesus with the world at our doorstep? Thousands of students from around the world have come to Tulsa to study at universities and colleges like TU, OU, OSU, NSU, and TCC. They live in our city. They are our neighbors. Jesus was asked, "Who is my neighbor?" And he answered with the parable of the Good Samaritan. Just like the Samaritan who could have chosen to walk past the man in need, but didn't, we have a choice to make as well. We have students from all around the world, from different countries on the side of the road, spiritually lost and in need of the hope and love found in Jesus. And they are on our path. We can either pass them by or be their neighbor. We are inviting you to join us in bringing the good news of Jesus to students from around the world by simply loving your neighbor. The world is your neighbor. What are you going to do?
Okay, we are back. And here's Terry. Say hi, Terry.
Hi. Keep
Oh.
it simple.
Yes. Well, so a lot of you guys know Terry, but we're gonna talk to Terry like we don't know Terry right now. And so Terry, just if you can just for a couple of minutes, just kind of share about how you got involved with international student ministry and just like what grabbed your attention, what gripped your heart about it all.
Yeah, I mean, to explain what happened with international students, I'd have to go back to how I went overseas, because I was at university, became a Christian, follower of Jesus in university, had always had great compassion for those who don't come from Christian backgrounds. My family, I didn't have a Bible at home. My family never once darkened the door of a church. And I was an avowed atheist, agnostic troublemaker in my last year of high school, and thought I was a real wisecracker, and was stopped in my tracks by a couple of believers in their community, and the impact they had on my life is incalculable. So through them, becoming a follower of Jesus, and it ended up, was at Christian University after that, and they had a missions trip to Mexico and France. I couldn't afford the France one because I couldn't afford the plane ticket, so I went to Mexico, even though I'd only studied French. 3 months almost in Mexico ended with me offering my life to serve in the nations. After that, I was granted a possible scholarship to go, or a scholarship to go to Los Angeles School of Design. And I also had a group who were doing art and Christian magazine out in Egypt. And when I prayed over the two opportunities, I heard a voice in my heart that said, you can go to Los Angeles and I'll bless you and be with you. If you go to Egypt, I'll change your life. So that was my start, I guess, Mexico and then Egypt, the nations. Before this, I was raised in a small country town. I'd never heard a foreign language. I studied 2 years of French high school, never heard it spoken until I got to Egypt, ever. And I had no associations with students from other countries. I mean, I knew nothing, which is often my selling point. If God can use me from a small country town of about 1,000 spread over farmland, who had never been a foreigner, the only money I'd ever seen was of some Canadian that gave me a Canadian dollar in high school. And to go to a country where the language and the culture was so different, a world surrounded by Muslims, had a tremendous impact on me. To shorten the rest of the answer, I ended up spending 25 years overseas, 22 of them in the Muslim world, the Arabic-speaking Muslim world. And it gripped my heart. I felt compassion and love for people from other backgrounds and other religions. Then after that stint, 22 in the Middle East, we came back to Tulsa, and I wondered how my having lived overseas would be useful. And previous director had invited me to come and take a look at University of Tulsa. And my first day on campus was orientation week, and students were moving in that day, so it was probably a Thursday or Friday. And I had met one Christian student and arranged to meet him again in front of the John Mabee Hall for the student dormitory. And so I stood out front waiting I had nothing else to do, so I was wandering. And I just stood there, and I saw some guys coming that looked like they were from the Middle East. So I talked to them in Arabic, so that was interesting, and discovered that they were Saudis, which I never met, where I, all the years, 25 years overseas, never met Saudis. They were always a very hard to get to group. They had darkened window limos and guards on buildings. So in the course of 30, 45 minutes of standing out there, face after face from the Middle East, and all of them said that they were about half the dorm. And the dorm slept 300. So I went, 150? from a closed country? Impossible. Then this Christian student finally came along and I said, hey, how many of your guys in the dorm are like from the Middle East? He said, oh, I guess about half. I went, no way, that's incredible. So after that, I was sold, man. I was like, wonderful. And started getting involved. And anyway, that's what started, what gave me a heart. I already had the heart, especially for working for those from non-Christian backgrounds. Not just in loving in them, listening to them, befriending them, and God working.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, as you've been working with ICO, what can you tell us a little bit about what it looks like to love the international students as our neighbors? Like, what does that look like for you? How have we been doing that? What are we inviting also volunteers to be a part of this community as we serve students?
I think a good example, I think Karen answered it really well. All the little services and things we do. And I almost don't want to call it, people sometimes call it friendship evangelism, but then that sounds like I'm a friend so I can evangelize you. But I think relational lifestyle evangelism means I want to give forth the words, thoughts, and heart of Jesus, that we are the hands and face of Jesus wherever we're at. And so everybody gets it. It's not just the student. And I had, I guess last month, we had a Christian top microbiologist or whatever he was, it's pretty amazing, a speaker come to TU. And so we invited several students from TU and also from even OU Tulsa. And the students I went with were almost all either in computer areas or in microbiology or different things. And so I sat down and I realized that I had like 4 or 5 in the row with me who were all from Muslim backgrounds. I mean, amazing. And most of them from very restrictive countries. And so we sat through the whole thing, and afterwards one of my guys wanted to get home, so put him in the car, we drove home, and on the way he started talking to me. We've had many lunches together, we've had hangout times, park walks, and he said to me, Terry, can I ask you an honest question? I said, sure. He said, what in your mind is the big difference between Islam and Christianity? And so I was able to talk about that in the car with him in a question in a way that he brought up that was wonderful. I had another student, that you've heard this one, he was from Saudi Arabia, this is years ago, and we were riding in the car, I had taken him shopping, I had waited at the Walmart, I mean it was hours, I had helped him with the car, find a car, we had helped him get his driver's license and all this stuff. So we were driving outside at a family home out in West Tulsa, past West Tulsa, and hanging out with them. And so it was a family who had opened their home. So he was going, he'd been a couple of times. He said, can I ask you a really honest question? We were just driving along. I said, sure. He said, why do you do what you do? I said, I have some thoughts, but I mean, why do you think we do what we do? He said, you're doing it so that you can convert me. And I said, well, I would love for you to find Jesus as Savior. But if that's the reason, are you converted yet? So am I still helping you? I mean, he said, yeah, you are. He said, in my country, if you were new, we might help you one time if you're a friend of the family. But that's it. He said, you all just open your homes and your food and you hang out. And this guy, by the way, so we talked more about helping. At the end of that day, and then we had another day, he and I were talking, and it came up a conversation about sharing Jesus, and I said, some of the some of the guys are worried about me because they think I'm a mubashir, an evangelist. He went, you? An evangelist? He said, no way. And I said, okay, what does an evangelist mean to you? He said, well, you're nice. I said, yeah, but I share about Jesus. He said, I know, we talk a lot. I'm happy with the conversations. But you're not mean. You're not putting pressure on me. You just listen to me and we can both express our ideas. Giving him a Bible when he left. And he said, I will treasure this. Please write on it in the insides, because that way I can say it's a book from you and not just a religious book. But we've had many, many ways like that of helping students, having meals with the students. There are so many ways that have responded in students asking, I heard you have a Bible study. I heard you have stories about Jesus that you're reading. Could I join a group like that? Those are amazing opportunities.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. I guess the final question that I would like to ask is, what would you say is the opportunity for just a regular person that is a follower of Jesus, and they're here in Tulsa, and they might be asking, well, how can God use me?
Yeah.
What would you say the opportunity is for them? What with the nations being at our door here,
Yeah.
like, and they're saying, I don't have maybe a seminary degree, or I don't have ministry experience, missions experience. What would you say the opportunity is for them?
I think of the statement of Jesus' enemies who said of Jesus, he was the friend of sinners. That there was a study done several years ago and published in a small book called I Once Was Lost. And in it, they interviewed many Christians, many students from non-Christian backgrounds who'd come to faith. And interestingly, they tried to track what were common threshold steps they went through. The first threshold that every single one of them went through was they made a friendship with a Christian that they trusted. I mean, and I think anybody can hit that goal if they just give time. I have found, again and again, many students who I say to people, many students, they were actually watching us, they read us, that we are, in a way, the first Bible they ever read. We are God's scripture written on men's hearts, that they're reading us. And that's a tremendous opportunity. I don't have to have a great education or know, what are the methodologies. You can get some of those things. But it's about relationship, friendship building, being Jesus in the good times and the hard times. And when you're there in the good times, when hard times come, and they do come for students, to be there counts for them. It's significant. And I've found many students asking questions. And doorways that happen where instead of trying to come up with formulas and degrees, methodologies, the ability to share my story. How is God alive in my life? How is Jesus alive for me? And communicating that to the students. I believe, and I have seen it in dozens of volunteers who are just residents of Tulsa and Broken Arrow and Owasso and nearby areas, is just be available, ready to share your personal story of how God is alive and not a religion. He's not a formula or a set of rules. He is a living shepherd.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And if you are interested in finding out how you can get involved as a volunteer, you can go to icotulsa.org, and you can click on Get Involved, and there's a volunteer form and that you can fill out, and Eddie will contact you and get you connected with the ministry and answer questions you might have. And so we just, if you sense the Lord is really grabbing your attention here today, we invite you to get involved. And so thanks so much, Terry, for being a part of this hour of just sharing. And so just want to encourage everybody to, again, check out our website. In a minute, we're going to check out how the fundraiser is doing. To donate, you can go to icotulsa.org, or you can use the link that I believe is in the right below on Facebook and on YouTube in the description. And so thanks everybody for being a part of today, and we're going to take another short break with another video, and then we're going to come back with Elisa as our guest. So I'll play this next video for us.
Yeah, I'm really surprised when I came here why ISM is doing such things like to help international students.
They picked me up at the airport and then they told me about the ISM.
ISM helped me a lot to make friends with Americans and also internationals.
And I can see how they are living in the Word of God.
Before I came here, I never read Bibles. So I got my first Bible here in the ISM. And she helped me to read Bible chapter by chapter, line by line.
They didn't force me to become the Christian like them. They gave me the chance to make my own decisions.
International Community Outreach is a local international ministry primarily on the University of Tulsa campus. There are about 1,200 international students from 75 different nations. Most of these students are from countries that have little to no access to the gospel. Countries like China, Saudi Arabia, Oman, India, and the list goes on. International Community Outreach, or International Student Ministries, seeks to connect the church to these international students, to befriend them, to bless them, and to expose them to the kingdom of God. We have weekly events like a free international lunch where students can come, get a free lunch, meet some other international students, meet some Christians, and it's a really cool place where a lot of friendships can be established. We also have a weekly English club where students can come and have conversational English with believers. We have different events like around the holidays and where students can come and experience Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter. At the beginning of each school year, we have something called Furniture Fest. A lot of students, when they come to an empty apartment. Throughout the year, we collect furniture from local churches, and then we make it available to the students when they first arrive.
I was so happy when my friend told me that you have free furniture here. So I got my mattress, dining table, and a bookshelf, so almost everything.
Every volunteer that comes and is a part of this ministry, each and every one of them has something unique to offer, a unique talent, a unique hobby, a unique interest that will connect you with the students.
Just a cool opportunity for students to be connected with people in the church and to develop friendships. And you know, within the context of these friendships, they're being exposed to the truth and exposed to the gospel.
You know, International Student Ministries and International Community Outreach, we really exist to meet the needs of international students through the love of Jesus, to be in their lives when they need us the most, and to let them know that God cares. The church in Tulsa really has an incredible opportunity to reach these awesome students with the love of Jesus that have come from around the world. Thank you for your interest in ICO and ISM, and thank you for praying for us, because we really do need your prayers. So God bless you.
Okay, we are back. So with me is Elisa. Say hi, Elisa.
Hi.
There we go. Thanks for joining me. We're going to continue our conversation about ICO, and just like I've been asking everybody else, to just kind of share a little bit about how yeah, how this all got started for you, getting working with international students, but really kind of like with Terry and with Ken and Karen, it probably started somewhere way before you even found out about ICO. So yeah, just share a little bit.
So I went to school at OSU in Stillwater. When I graduated, I moved here to Tulsa, was working a full-time job, completely different field for 2.5 years. And during those 2 years, God really convicted me with a growing sense of urgency about the global and local needs of unreached people groups. So to be unreached means that less than 2% of the population are Christian. And so I felt this growing conviction. I started praying and looking for missions opportunities. And God is always faithful. He led me to international community outreach at TU. It's actually a really funny story about how I just happened to hear about this ministry. I showed up at one of the free international lunches. I walked in. I knew one person there.
The mic is moving magically.
Thank you, Terry. I knew one person there. They all welcomed me so warmly, and so I started volunteering for a couple months. And then the door opened for me to join them full time, and so I did. And here I am. But something that really stood out to me about this ministry as I first was learning about it and was looking into it, was researching it on the ICO website, was looking at the TU website, looking at statistics on their international students. And I was shocked by the number of international students at the University of Tulsa who are from unreached countries, from regions in the 1040 window. So the 1040 window refers to the regions in North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia, between 10 and 40 degrees north latitude. And current estimates suggest that about 84% of the world's unreached people groups currently live in this region.
Wow.
So these are people with little to no access to the gospel or Christianity, billions of people who have very little Christian influence in their life. And these regions are really hard for missionaries to get to. It's so hard that of the entire full-time missionary workforce, less than 4% works there.
Wow.
And in North America, for about every $100 donated to missions, only 5 cents goes to this region.
Wow.
These are all statistics talked about on the Joshua Project. These are things that the class Perspectives on the World Christian Movement talks about. So people here have very little access to the gospel or Christianity, and they're really hard for missionaries to get to. But looking at the TU website, I saw that over 600 of their international students are from countries in this region.
Yeah.
So I was just really blown away. God really opened my eyes, seeing that I think God is trying to make this as easy as possible for us. Just the global missions implications of taking advantage of these opportunities with internationals. That he's literally bringing the hardest to reach people in the world here to us.
Yeah.
Where they're open to friendship, and we have the freedom and the community and the resources to connect with them.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, I remember you saying that you were just amazed at how easy it was to connect with students and to you know, how easy it was to begin conversations. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that experience, and then just like maybe as an encouragement also to those who are interested in getting involved with not only with ICO but just international student ministry in general, wherever they are.
I am continually learning just how open students are, no matter where they are from, how open they are to friendship when we simply take the time to care for them. And throughout my almost 2 years now of being with ICO, like you said, I've been really pleasantly surprised at how easy it is, how natural these spiritual conversations come up. I've actually, before I joined the ministry, I was working full-time in research, you know, a very secular field. And moving here to international student ministry, I actually find it a lot easier to discuss these spiritual things with internationals who have completely different religious backgrounds, believe completely different things, different worldviews. It's actually easier, I think, in some ways, to talk to them about these spiritual things than it is to talk about talk with our own American neighbors. So I was just really pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah, yeah. There is definitely a lot of opportunity, a lot of openness, and so it is definitely a time in history that God has ordained and has opened up for us to share the good news about Jesus with the nations, and they're coming right to us here in the U.S. And so, yeah, one last question I have for you is, I've asked this a few other folks already too, but like if you'd be sitting across somebody right now that is interested in getting involved with ICO, like what like and it's like something that God's really stirred in them, but they're just not sure what how they can get involved or what to do, and they just something that you could say to them that would be encouraging.
Mm-hmm. I would say just come check it out. I think the beauty of ICO is that no matter what level of involvement you have time for, that you're comfortable with at this season in your life, there are opportunities for you.
Yeah.
And I also want to echo what Karen said about just, prayerfully asking God, seeking, and not being afraid to say yes to God. It was scary for me to leave a full-time paying job and coming, into ministry, but the more I surrender and serve God, the more I find that He's actually the one serving me.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to say yes and just come check it out. Give it a try.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing. Thanks for being here for this hour. And again, if you want to get involved, go to icotulsa.org. Just an update about our fundraiser. Last time we checked, I think it was at $1,765. And just a reminder that all the dollars that come in over the next 3 days are the first 5,000 are going to be matched. And so those who've donated, thank you so much. And your donations to this point are matched. And so it's doubled. And so just thank you for that, for being a part of this fundraiser today. So we're going to take another quick break for our final guest. Eddie is going to come, and so we're going to watch another quick video. Okay, we are back, and welcome, Eddie. So glad that you can join us. And yeah, why don't we, you actually have some special guests here today. I should say not guests because they're your boys, but why don't you guys come on up and say hi for a minute?
Come on up here, Isaac and Blaze. I got two of my 4 kids with me. Can you say hi? This is Isaac. This is Blaze. And this is actually a good plug because we got some summer activities coming up. And one thing I love about our summer free international dinners and our activities is we get to do ministry as a family. And so our kids are love to build relationships with students and spend time with them. And you can't get comfortable here. I'm going to have you go sit down and stuff. And they also love to pray for the students as well. So we're looking forward to the summer.
Well, good to have you guys with us.
Go back. Sit down. I do want to say that I'm impressed with Jerry here. He needs the Fox News to reach out to him if he needs another job. He's the cameraman. He's the interviewer. He's the tech man, the sound man. He does it all with his little phone here.
That's funny. Oh man, well, thank you very much. Yeah, so I've been starting out with all of the guests, so just kind of hearing just how this all got started for you. A little bit of your story and just how God, brought this to your attention.
Well, like Terry and yourself, I first started off overseas. Went overseas in 2004. When I first went overseas, I'd never been overseas. So I showed up in the country I was supposed to go to without a visa because I didn't know what a visa was. Thankfully, Thailand at that time gave tourist visas on arrival, so they didn't turn me away. But then I had to promptly leave the country to Malaysia and get a visa, so I knew nothing. But God was slowly calling me, and some of the statistics that Elisa quoted earlier really drew my attention. One of them in particular was that out of 10 workers, 9 stay in the States and only 1 goes overseas. And then just the whole idea of the 10-40 window. And I wanted to go where the biggest need is, and we went there. And those of you that have heard our story, we were overseas until 2015, and our oldest son was born with an illness that we couldn't manage overseas anymore. So we came back, and I was working at a Chinese church for a while, and then started volunteering with ICO and fell in love with ICO because it was exactly what we were doing overseas, except that I get to do it in English. I don't got to run a coffee shop. I don't got to get a visa or worry about being kicked out of the country or getting locals arrested. I mean, it's just beautiful. In fact, I think that the more that I've served here with ICO, I think I understand missions better. I wish I had some of this experience that I have now. I think I could have done better overseas.
Wow. Yeah. Well, we're super excited that you're with us and blessed to have you with us. And so thanks for sharing a little bit how it all started. So looking at some of the practical things about ICO, and we talked about the opportunity. We talked about that every person has something to bring. But what are some of the things that we've been doing and that people can just plug into throughout the year?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me kind of echo what Elisa said, that regardless of your season of life, there's a place that you can get plugged in. At the very basic level, I think of our international student and family partnership, where you can adopt a student, and we encourage you to do something with them at least once a month. Often it ends up being more. It's a 1-year commitment, but those relationships sometimes go on for many years, and so you can easily take on a student and invite them into your home. When we were overseas, one of the statistics that we heard was they looked at some fruitful missionaries, and across the board, regardless of country or how well they spoke the target language or how well they incarnated into the host culture, the missionaries that were the most fruitful were those that opened up their home 3 to 4 times a week.
Wow.
Now that's a full-time missions work, and we're not asking our volunteers to do that. But the principle is when you share life with people, you have a huge impact. And so I think right there at the International Student and Family Partnership, a great opportunity to share life with a student. Mm-hmm. We have our free international lunches during the school year. We have Furniture Fest coming up. We'll be collecting furniture over the summer, and that's a big kickoff. I think a lot of the student testimonies that I hear when they come to faith, they often begin with the Furniture Fest, because like Terry had said, being the hands and feet of Jesus. They experience the love of Jesus even though they don't fully understand the gospel yet. So being a part of that, we need people who drive trucks. If you have a truck, we really need trucks. And just sometimes you don't even, if you don't feel like, even you're that kind of person, you're not that outgoing type and you want to meet a lot of students, but you can be there in the back end part, helping with pickups and deliveries. Mm-hmm. We have, like I said, our free international dinners over the summer and our activities, and hopefully we'll get those going soon. A great opportunity just to meet a relationship with them. And as one of our volunteers often says, it's all about just inviting, invite. And so you're first starting off meeting these students and then just inviting them into your lives, inviting them into your homes, inviting them out for coffee, then eventually inviting them into the gospel. And so, of course, prayer is a big thing as well, joining us in prayer and praying for these students. There's English Club that meets on Mondays. And so I just encourage anybody, if you're interested, you can connect with me. You can see my information on our website. And talk to me. I can talk with you about how you can get involved in your season of life.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and these are all opportunities. They're places where our lives intersect with the lives of students. And I want to talk a little bit with you about genuine love. I think there's something about when you engage students through community, where you don't just show up, you say something, and then you leave. It's like, okay, check.
Yeah.
I've shared the gospel, but there's something about living in community with students, being there, being available to them, loving, serving them, caring for them. I mean, it's a whole different thing, because it kind of exposes things in us, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So anyway, so what are your thoughts about like even maybe even from your own life, but also just in experiences with this? But how is this different than just going and going on a trip for a week and then coming back? I
like to tell people that if you'd like to do missions trips, and this is a perfect missions opportunity. You don't got to raise all the thousands of dollars for a plane ticket, and you don't got to worry about going through a translator. You can get involved, and the relationships don't have to end after 2 weeks. And so it's an amazing opportunity. I find myself, the more that I grow in this, the more God is teaching me what love is and how to love these students. Yeah, and it's easy for us as humans to want to just check that box. Okay, give them a track, or and that's not what we're about. Just passing out tracks. What we're about, building these relationships, and it does. It takes time, it takes sacrifice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes these students may call you or need some help at an inconvenient hour. Mm-hmm. I think we're more and more like Christ when we respond to that kind of call. Mm-hmm. And love is, unlike what Hollywood defines it, it's not just something you fall into. It's not just something that happens to you. It's something that we choose. Paul says in Philippians, choose to have a smart love that mm-hmm. chooses what is best. And so we choose what is best for these students by serving them and loving them and calling them to have the same hope that we have. And mm-hmm. Sometimes it's hard because we don't often see all the fruit on this side of life, mm-hmm. but we go by faith because God says His word does not return void. I think it's Isaiah 55:11, and so we keep putting God's word in their hearts.
Yeah.
And so it is. It's a big commitment, a big sacrifice, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
I can understand Jesus now in John where he says, I think it's chapter 4, I have food you don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
It's food that nourishes me. It's nourishing in a spiritual sense.
Yeah. And what you said about being like Christ in our love. I mean, the love of Jesus is like He loved first.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about that, it's like, while we were still sinners, while we didn't, while we were still enemies, while we had nothing to offer Him, He loved us first. And not only did He love first, He also has an unfailing love, a love that doesn't give up. And so I think that, when we engage with people and we begin to love them and in the name of Jesus, but also like Jesus. Mm-hmm. And we need the help of God, and the Holy Spirit. He transforms us. He begins to change us. And so in some ways, it's I think Karen said it too. It's like or Ken, our lives are as impacted as their lives, and
become more like Christ.
As we become more like Christ, as we begin to reach out to students and to people that like Jesus. like Jesus and love like he loves. And there's no strings attached. There's no if somebody never comes to faith, if they may never, we never see that, you know what, the time that they're here, we're gonna continue to love them and continue to love them, because that's what God does. That's what Jesus does. Yes. Well, thanks so much for being here and for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And just like that, an hour is over. That's pretty crazy. But we just want to thank everybody that's here, that was here with us, for joining us online. This will be available, to rewatch or to share with others on YouTube, as well as actually on our website. We'll post it there. As well as on our Facebook page. And so you can share it with other people that didn't get a chance to watch it live. And so we just want to thank you again for being a part of this. So our fundraiser is going to go till Tuesday night, midnight. So you have the opportunity to give anytime between now and then. And so we just ask that you would share this with others, this opportunity to invest in, because what you do when you invest into ICO, and you're helping us bring the hope and love of Jesus to international students. You're helping us bring the gospel to the nations. And so we just thank you for your support. Thank you for your involvement, for your future involvement. And one last thing is that on the donation page, it's actually a crowdfunding page, which means that you can create your own fundraiser. So if you really want to help raise a certain amount for ICO and invite others to join, you can create your own crowdfunding page for ICO, set a goal, an amount as a goal, and then you can email friends, you can post it on social media, and you can invite others to give in that way. So thanks again for being a part of our time today, and thanks again to all of our guests. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. God bless you. And we'll give a report at the end of Wednesday morning of how we did in our fundraiser. All right. All right. Well, God bless you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.